Mary's has an international reputation amongst Catholics and non-Catholics as a place where music and chant of the Latin tradition is upheld, whilst embracing and interweaving modern approaches. For some Catholics, the Second Vatican Council, which was about 50 years ago, which reformed the liturgy that we have in the Latin Church, it's still upheld by many as a disaster, where the tradition remains that the liturgy was cut down rather brutally to support a growing need for the vernacular. Now, the music was seen by some as sidelined to guitar and piano music, and the reality of the Vatican II documents couldn't be further from that truth. The aim was that sacred music and Gregorian chant particularly should be held in the highest esteem as possibly the greatest art form, higher than any other art form, in fact, the documents say. And one phrase, I think, which we can all agree on here is that it says the sacred liturgy should powerfully lift up man's mind to God and to higher things. That's the reality of what we need to do. That's the reality of what I try to do every single day. My background is from a monastic tradition. So at the age of 10, my parents shipped me off to a monastic school where I was taught by Benedictine monks in the Somerset countryside of England. And it was a bit like Harry Potter for someone who'd been at a small public school in a city suburb. So that was interesting. I'd never experienced the rhythm of daily worship until I reached that place. The monks there would sing a lot in Latin, but the majority of the office they sang, which was 5 times a day, was in English. So there was a sort of amalgamation of both of those worlds. At St Mary's Cathedral, the majority of the music we sing is in Latin, the language of our Western liturgy for so many centuries. We take in choristers from year 3 onwards, and a great deal of the initial training that we give them is to speak and understand the basics of reading Latin. The Latin text carries not only a lot of theological precision, but a sense of continuity and universality, which has formed our musical and spiritual identity. The bedrock of the music we perform is Renaissance polyphony, so music by Palestrina, Victoria, and Bird. So since within this Catholic context, within the Vatican Council sort of waves that have been left, the spoken parts of the Mass have become English. So the liturgy generally is in English, and the readings are in English. But St Mary's maintains an unbroken tradition of singing the choir parts of the Mass in Latin. So there is a good interweaving of the two languages there. And increasingly, we find ourselves in a position to serve the liturgy in English to make the word audible, that's the important thing, and comprehensible to our communities, while striving not to lose the dignity, beauty, and prayerfulness that the Latin chant and polyphony engenders. The sound world of everything that we do at the cathedral exists around Gregorian chant, so our English music also exists around the Gregorian modes. So we try to fit English into what is a Latin structure. And it's been fascinating to look at the music which Andre sent through to me, and I realised that is something that also happens within this context as well. So it's good to know that we're all sort of vaguely on the same page with this, which is good. So coming to Australia from England wasn't so much of a shock as I was expecting. The same challenges remain as a liturgical musician, as I'm sure they do for all of us, and sometimes fighting your corner to make sure that music is kept at a high level. That's something that hasn't changed. One of the challenges I hadn't expected or prepared a solution for was the Australian accent when it comes to singing. And I'm going to dive into some of these things. It's required me to do quite a lot of physiological work to understand why some of these vowels, which are prevalent in the Australian accent, cause slight problems when singing. So I hope that you'll bear with me and not be too offended when I go through this. The English choral school is quite refined and uses quite a received pronunciation, when singing, which is very nice, but also quite unique. A famous Christmas piece we sing at St Mary's by John Rutter, who's quite a famous church music composer, squeezes the words flower, power, and shower into one syllable, so it becomes fla, pa, and sha. Now, we don't really want to try and encourage that because it sounds utterly ridiculous. However, it does even out among a choir some of the issues that will be significant if you've got people doing different things. This just leads me on to one quite fun story, which was Stephen Cleobury, who was the conductor of King's College, Cambridge, who some of you might have heard of King's College, Cambridge, and they do a broadcast of Christmas music every year. It's a university college, so there are students who sing in the choir, and also children choristers. They recorded the Rachmaninoff Vespers, and in order to get this really good, because it was a Sony recording, it needs to be good, it needs to be right, they employed Xenia de Berna to come and be the Russian language coach. And Stephen Cleobury is an English, he's dead now, but he was an English, thoroughbred English, received pronunciation conductor. And he said, now I would like to sing through this first movement with the choir and then ask you, Xenia, for some feedback. Is that okay? So anyway, they sang the first movement of the Rachmaninoff Vespers, which is an amazing piece, which I'm sure you will know. And then after that, he turned around expecting sort of encouragement and said, how was that? And she said, that was really very good. Except I couldn't hear any consonants and all the vowels were wrong. So, if you'll just briefly allow me to unpack my methodology, which I attach to our choristers when we are singing in English. I hope this is going to be helpful to you. Singing Latin is particularly easy. Consonants are tricky in Latin because they're affected by the vowel that follows or precedes them. But the vowels themselves are just so easy. There are only 5, and it couldn't be any easier, really. So the A, E, I, O, U are normal vowels. That's quite straightforward. But I believe to succeed with this in English, there needs to be a very bland and uniform and neutral approach to singing this, whether it's to make sure it's executed really successfully. Our singing teacher at St Mary's, when she's teaching the little children, she calls this the Australian twang-ometer, which goes from Steve Irwin at one end to Julie Andrews at the other end. You know, so you've got a full spectrum of vowel brightness. So that's an important thing to think about. So I'm just going to go through these vowels, and I'm going to try and get you to sing them or say them back to me, just so that you can just hear how the physiological approach to this affects what noise you make as a group. So A, starting with vowel A, there's a temptation to make this quite a bright sound, and I'm often battling with this, but to make it work consistently, it does need that particularly bland sound. So the ah is a bit bright. Now you can hear when I do ah, my tongue is quite high in my mouth. So if we can all just do a really bright ah, do that for me? Yes, that's very sort of duck-like. That's good. Now can you do the opposite, the Julie Andrews end of the twangometer, and do an oh. And that's too much the other way. So there is a middle ground, and it just involves quite an even approach to the tongue placement. And this comes on to some of the words which we'll be looking at, which I find particularly difficult when I'm rehearsing with the choir. So if we can look at a really even ah sound. So again, it's just sort of quite a high roof of mouth placement, but quite an even tongue placement. Ah. Can you try that? Yes, but not ah, but ah. So it's still got some brightness coming through. Can you hear how that's different? And That's all sounding very nice. When it comes to E, we're going to work our way through these. It's equally problematic, but easily resolved. I'll always tell the choristers that it needs to be sung as in A-I-R, so the thing that we breathe, okay? So, air, sort of quite a bright sound, not air, which is a temptation to do, because again, that tongue moves quite high in the mouth. So keeping the tongue quite low, more of an air sound. Can we try that? That's lovely, that's good. And all of these things will make sense in the end. I'm just going to keep dissecting this now. The I vowel, again, the tongue does tend to move up in the mouth. You can see a pattern here. So instead of an E, yes, which is again quite a tight sound, think of it more of as an IH. So it's an I. And, you know, that comes in what we sing. We sing Kyrie and things like that.
We just had a word today in regards to iniquity.
Yes, exactly. Inique. All of those vowels can be the same. Iniquities. Okay? And the E at the end there, E, more of an I sound. It will just help. It just evens these out. The next one is the O vowel, and I know this from my singing of the Bogorodicy, which we did with the Rachmaninoff just a few weeks back at St Mary's. R. It's quite an R sound, so that shouldn't be an unfamiliar sound to you, that R. Keep that evenness all the way through those words. It sounds a bit crazy when you're speaking it. I think that's the other thing to mention, is that speaking and singing have very different needs for inflection and very different needs for articulation. The last one is oo. Now, I find this a perennial problem, especially with younger singers. Weirdly, especially with female younger singers, there's a temptation to spell it E-W-E. So it becomes a sort of almost French U, which we want to try and avoid. And again, that just needs to be quite a dark sound. Again, loads of space in your mouth, and quite a small exit of sound. So an oo. Yes? Ooh. You could almost, it does sound like you've just seen a sort of a nice little puppy. Ooh. Yeah? It just needs to have that level of brightness, because you can't go ooh if you see a nice little puppy. That will sound very odd. But there was a joke about sort of the noise that French cows make, which is moo. Anyway, there's just some thoughts there about how evening these out can be the basis of a successful pronunciation, I believe. The key takeaway from what I'm trying to say here is that a choir which sings uniformly the same vowel, from my experience, will actually sing slightly better in tune. Now, again, that also relies on the participants who are singing to an extent, but I find that if the choruses, when I'm rehearsing them in the morning, are singing quite high on a vowel which isn't the same, especially if it's early in the morning, it's quite stressful for the ears, my ears, because I'm the person that they're singing at. But also, to make sure they're all doing the same thing, suddenly they are singing the same sound at the same pitch, and it works. So it's something to bear in mind. It's a huge generalization, and of course it's not going to work for everyone, but I find that is incredibly helpful. As I mentioned, the tongue placement is something which affects the English pronunciation significantly. Diphthongs, so those two vowels together, if treated well, can work well with an equally bland and uniform and neutral vowel sound. For example, I find one of the trickiest words to sing, ironically, the word music. Okay? And that's because the first vowel has a huge shift from an E to an oo. You don't say music, you'd say music. Okay? So it's just about how you shift between an I, oo, music. Yeah? Think about that. The reason for this is that the bright ear vowel and the change to the dark oo vowel minimizes the transition, which will help everyone sing that collectively better. The other word, which I feel, this isn't me bashing the words that I think are wrong, but suffers from a high tongue and low mouth placement. And this is one when I first came to St Mary's for my interview, which was over 2 years ago, and I couldn't work out what the problem was, and I hadn't really prepared a solution for. and it was the word earth. Okay? Earth. If you could all say for me in a quite normal Australian accent the word earth. Could you say that? Earth. Earth. Yes, you can hear that. Earth. And that, your tongue is very high. Earth. Now, the way that when I really didn't know what to do with this when I first arrived, so the way I established that is if you sort of do a teenage grunt sound, so it's more of an earth, yeah? Earth. Again, it's quite a bland sound, but that just gets rid of some of the problems. It sounds weird to speak it again, but when it's sung, as long as everyone's doing the same thing, it should solve some of those problems. When I first tried to correct that, I had the choruses accidentally singing Arth, which didn't help the matter at all. In fact, it made it worse, so it took me quite a while to understand what the problem was. A neutral sound just is the way that I think helps there a lot. I'm not trying to say that pronunciation in a more local way is a bad thing, and I'm not trying to bash that at all. When I worked in the north of England, when they have slightly more relaxed accents, the kids in the choir would sing, "Oh, blessed Jesus, hear and answer me." And then when I moved to the south of England, the choir would very happily sing, "Oh, blessed Jesus, hear and answer me." And it was actually quite a nice local touch, which I enjoyed. It took me a while to work out what the problem was, because I'd never realised that there would be such a difference between these two places. And so I kept on saying to the choir in the south of England, it's wrong, and I couldn't work out the notes were right, and the words were right, but it was just that one answer, that change just makes a difference. So we sort of, I let that slide. The key thing with all of this is just making sure that whatever you choose, whether you're singing or leading a group, is that you make sure that everyone is doing the same thing. Because if they're not, then you won't get a homogeneous and uniform sound.
For that, in our experience, we have petitions, litanies, where the response from the choir is grant this, O Lord. And there's a lot of variation on that.
Exactly.
Choir, so I always have to remind my singers what I want. So I just prefer
Grant, yeah. But that's sort of, again, that's the mid-ground on the twangometer as well. It's not the grant of Julie Andrews, it's not grant, but it's grant, with an R sound. And that, I think, is a case, and Lord have mercy as well. Things like that. So I'm sure you have lots of Lord have mercies as well. So these are just important things which I hope if you can do these in practice, it might help to realise some of the uniformity that's required. Well, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope I haven't been too rambling and too offensive.
How do you approach, we have a lot of grant this, O Lord, so we don't go, O Lord. There's a lot of O.
Well, see, and that's a case as well of the vowel O. Now, O sound, grant this, O Lord, sounds very weird when you're speaking it, but grant this, O Lord, O. When you're singing, O, it just changes completely. So I would more go for that. And it doesn't sound like you're trying to impersonate an English person, which is the key thing, and it's not what I'm trying to impose, but it just evens that out. Again, a bland and neutral vowel on O as opposed to O with a diphthong.
That's a big one.
It is.
We know.
Well, hopefully I've put that on the radar now.
Are there any things that for diction you find complicated, choir masters or readers or singers, that you always stumble up against that need an idea to think about? Or
I don't have the word for it, but like, again, in this power, we're talking about power.
Specifically.
Do you say power? Do you say power?
So, again, with that, I try to even it out to... I think the problem with power is that it would disrupt the flow and line of a particular piece of chant. So
in
if
the Blue Book, page 55,
in the middle,
thou girdest me about with power from on high.
I would, for example, tell my choir to sing that as pa. Now, I know that sounds slightly odd, but when you're singing it, it doesn't sound so odd. Should we give that a try?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
This isn't working.
I think it doesn't necessarily... it's not necessarily the two syllables that's the problem. It's the second syllable becomes stronger than the first. So you don't want it to ever be power. Okay, power. I think that's the problem. So this is why I'd always try to get my choir sing pa. Okay, pa with an even. We're just going to try it with two ways. Should we give it a try? Third line on page 55. Do, 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 do. Thou. Here we go. Okay, let's try it again. Just one syllable. And just lean into it, okay? 1, 2. Thou girdest me about with power. Now, stick two syllables in. Power, like that. And just hear the difference there. I'm not trying to get you to do it over the top to make my point. But I just want you to listen to how it changes the line there. Thou girdest. Thou girdest me about with power. Yeah, I think it just sort of adds an extra bump in the road. So now consciously sing, Thou girdest me about with power from on high, power from on high. Try that. And Thou girdest me about with power from on high. That's good.
Thou should rhyme with power. Thou, not thou. Thou.
Again, it's that ah sound. Pa, thou, thou, thou. If you're just evening these out, thou girdest me, it's like mu. Yes, music, those two vowels together. Thou girdest me. 1, 2. Thou girdest me about with power. Great. Let's carry on, shall we? Let's just that I may chant. Here we go. 1, 2. Hang on. That's the there. And that I may chant to thee. Yeah. Let's think about the word chant. Okay, with an ah sound. Instead of chant, but chant, but chant. Ah. Try that. That and that I may chant to thee. Ah. Chant what? To, yes, just to chant to the A-U-E as opposed to A-U-E. Let's do that again. That I may, and that I may chant to thee. And when you're all doing it uniformly, it's absolutely fine. Let's do the last two lines, shall we? Holy, do-do-do. Holy is the living temple of thy ineffable glory. That's it. Again, mankind, not mankind, but ma-ah. Yes? Let's do that last line. Do-do-do-do. That was transformed, okay? And actually it sounded louder because you were all doing the same thing. That does also make a difference. Thank you. Absolutely.
You said a word I find hardest is alleluia, because in Russian it's alleluia and in English it's alleluia. So when you're swapping, it's a real...
It's the oo. The sound like an alleluia in speech.
Hallelujah, yes.
But in Russian it's alleluia, and in many ways in Slavonic it's the similar thing with Latin, is that the vowels are quite defined and less. You need to kind of. Well, many of us haven't sung in a formal English language a lot, or in train. Some of us have, but a lot of us have the Slavonic from with mother's milk kind of thing. Some of us, a lot of us. So a lot of the vowels we have are really coloured by that, and so we're used to it, and we're unused to singing Alleluia. So what's the tone one? Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Now I don't know if that's clean enough, but it can go Alleluia. I don't know how to do it. Alleluia, Alleluia. I kind of closing the oo a bit. Alleluia, and that's what I really want to avoid generally.
Can we just do the top?
Yeah.
The first vowel at the top of that page, top of 55. Let's see what happens here, shall we? Do do do. Here we go. Human nature. Ooh, as opposed to human, hu. Again, it's just shifting that ooh vowel. One more time. That was a lovely other at the start. Try that again. Add. That's great. And that was much better. So it's just preparing for some of these vowels with a bit more attention. It's interesting because the pronunciation for Alleluia in your tradition and in the Latin tradition is exactly the same. Except unless you're a French monk, when you go Alleluia. Who knows why? Thank you.
Do we want to just look at some text, like sort of recited text in the same book? There's the Troparia there before that, or around page 31.
Ah.
Because it's a tough thing is the text. Yeah. Let's do 31. When the storm has been sealed by the Jews, etc.
Do 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 do. 1, 2.
When the storm has been sealed by the Jews.
Okay, Jew, ooh, not Jews, but Jews. One more time. When the
storm has been sealed by the Jews.
Lovely.
And the soldiers were guarding thine immaculate body.
Excellent.
Thou didst rise on the third day, O Saviour, granting life unto the world.
Unto the world, granting. Let's go from granting. And
Granting life unto the world.
lovely.
Wherefore, the hosts of the heavens cried out to thee, O life giver.
Better.
Glory to thy resurrection, O Christ. Glory to thy kingdom. Glory to thy dispensation, O only lover of mankind.
That was.
How were the twos?
The twos were good. The twos were good. The R was excellent, especially on the fourth line. Slightly less good on the O Christ, and then slightly less good also on the bottom line there. O only. Okay, O only. Okay, O only. It just needs to be a very even sounder. Glory to. Could you just say that for me?
Glory to.
I definitely heard a two from someone. Glory to. Well, it's the actually, yes. Glory to. It will just help to make such a difference. Let's just try that last, the fourth line, the second bar. Glory to thy resurrection. Okay, 1, 2.
Glory to thy resurrection, O
Think about the tu on the next line. And. It was slightly worse. Let's just try the last bar. And. That's good. Glory to thy dispensation, holy mankind, yes, okay. Some of these vowels. I think you can see some of the problems here is that actually you need almost to shift into a completely different style when singing in English than when you were saying things. If you were, again, as I said, if you were to speak like you were singing, people would think you were absolutely mad. But it's just a case of making that shift and knowing that your singing voice is not necessarily going to be your speaking voice. I have a problem with Christmas carols when people sing things like angels. You know, no, I sing angels or Bethlehem. Okay, the place is Bethlehem, and lots of people say Bethlehem. Yeah, and angels. Yes, and I think you should almost expect people to understand what you're singing as if you were speaking it, but with the accent that's required to make that seem. Am I making sense there?
So could we, on page 15, could we actually have a look at the last two, the second last line, rejoice, O heavens,
Do you do angel or angel?
Look, I think we were discussing it and we thought let's come up with whatever we agree on.
Yeah.
For harmony within the group.
Let's give this a try, shall we? Just try first. We'll try rejoice, O heavens, and then new angel. Okay, an sound at the end there. It doesn't need to be oo, but more of an sound, and just see what that sounds like. And then we'll do angel. Easier to sing and probably less easy to understand. But let's find out. 1, 2. That was lovely. Angel, with an sound. As opposed to, now sing it with angel, which is probably easier to sing, but slightly more unintelligible and a sort of surprise ending to that phrase. Let's try that again, rejoice. Rejoice, O heavens, receiving the new angel. The problem with that is that you get angel, yeah? And actually, angel is what you want to hear. And it's about how we're phrasing these words as well. Instead of angel, angel. It can make a difference. Now try it with an sound, an even sound at the end there. Rejoice. Rejoice, O heavens, receiving the new angel. Inspired man, not man of prayer, but man of prayer. Okay.
And so we said inspired man. We didn't inspire. Do you want inspired? Inspired, as opposed to inspired. Inspired man.
Because that just shifts the emphasis from the.
It's essentially 2 syllables, and the inspired is just a little bit.
It's just a slight sort of change.
Inspired man.
Yeah. The divine Lee, sorry. Man. That's an interesting one. Pasteur. Pasteur was the man that invented. What did Louis Pasteur invent? Was it? Milk, yes, I was going to say. Yeah, but there's a bit. Let's try and. Well, no, it doesn't need to be pastor or pasteur. It can be somewhere in between. Pasteur, again, an even vowel as opposed to or or. Let's just try that again. The divinely inspired ma. Still need more of an sound there. The divinely, end of that third line. fourth line, sorry, and. Those ends of phrases, herald, it was a bit too dark there, herald, with an herald, and then helper, with an sound as opposed to helper, or something like that, yes?
Unmercenary, or unmercenary.
What would...
Whatever we agree on universal, I don't remember what we said. I think we said unmercenary. Unmercenary.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not singing at this pace, we're singing a little bit quicker. So we'll say, "O divinely inspired man of prayer and unmercenary master." It'll flow. Inspired is inspired. Yeah, but not inspired. Yeah, inspired.
I think it's just making a bit more awareness, and I hope some of these exercises have helped. Has anyone got any more questions? Yes.
Along that line of inspired, reverend and honourable. Do you go
Reverend.
Reverend.
Yes, I say reverend.
Honourable or honourable?
It sort of depends. I change my mind about these quite often, and it would often be impact. I don't know if it's part of. I can never decide. So, but reverend, I would always say, because that's what I refer to a priest as. So reverend. I wouldn't say reverend. I'd say reverence as well. Reverence. And as long as everyone's doing the same thing, then that's absolutely. You can do whatever you want, really. But so I get the choristers to roll R's because there are certain things within an Australian approach to diction which actually prevents it. Helper, that L is something that I often find gets lost, and it just becomes helper. Okay. Now, some of these consonants do need a bit of revving up, and one of them is the R. So respice we'd sing in Latin, and I'd always get the choristers to roll their R at the start of that, because then otherwise it just sounds like wespice. And we need to be clear that the word is being sung correctly. Resurrection, I wouldn't have a problem with, but I have a problem with people rolling things at the ends of phrases. Glory, or, in Latin, darobor, which sounds weird. So it's just a case of using some judgment with that. I encourage it. I encourage people to roll R's. I don't know if it's part of the tradition here.
If you roll R's, again, you should, whatever your parish does is what you should do. Without getting too hard and fast about it. There is a scale of rolling though. There's what's a roll, and there's a flip. It's like a tiny, it's called a flipped R. And maybe that's enough. Glory provides enough diction as opposed to glory or something like that, which is a little bit weird.
And I probably would say that for resurrection, it's just a little flick there.
I'm more for the resurrection. I prefer that. So I never encourage rolling R's, particularly in my English. So it depends on the prime master. Both are right, essentially.
It's like we just find that if I'm getting kids to sing a Kyrie, for example, it will become Christe or something like that, as opposed to Christe. And what we're losing out is actually the clarity of the vowel. It's far easier to sing Christe as opposed to Christe. It's just more movement. So actually, it makes it easier in many cases to just flick the R a bit.
We we say with the k at the beginning, Christe, Christe eleison, Christe eleison. So, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison. And there's a time, and we don't go Christe eleison, Christe, because there's a two.
There's on page 19, so at the bottom, there's a bit of a discussion about the word DOTH. So,
Doth. Well, I always go doth. My preference, it's just an easier than doth. It's because that again, it's not a clear vowel. Doth. How would you say it?
So
We didn't agree.
we
We decided in rehearsal just a half an hour ago to go hard. I'm not married to the idea. I'm happy to correct it. So.
I think, again, it's just about whatever is easiest to do. Of course, doth is an easier vowel because it's one of the five there, but the doth, more of an sound, isn't. Yes. Sorry, wherefore, isn't it? Okay. And. Just try again with a now do it with a sort of doth sound. More of an open vowel. And. And I didn't notice a problem there. There was a uniform vowel. So again, that I think is the crucial thing. Whatever decision is made, as long as everyone's doing the same thing, it will work.
I conducted an English parish of the Orthodox Church for well over a decade, and the universally continuing problem that I came up with, had to deal with a lot, was the famous Australian diphthong. It seems to be uniquely accentuated in Australia over any other country that uses the language English. And I came up with basically the idea that I would try to eliminate the diphthong in any situation where it could be done so. So to just drop off the offending other vowel that was preventing the line from continuing in the phrase. In your choir, do you just celebrate the diphthong and work with it, or do you try to sort of get rid of it?
It depends in which context that it depends what we're singing, really. There are times when I try to eliminate it, but there are times I don't really want the choir to sound too. There was an old story from Westminster Cathedral, which famously the kids, when they were singing in Latin, which was far more Latin than we do at St Mary's, that the kids, when they were singing in English, sounded like they were sort of Italian aliens. So, it'd be gentle light of the holy glory of the, and it would just sound so very odd that it sort of, but a little bit of diphthong just eliminates that weirdness. So whilst it can be difficult at times, and I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, day. Okay, so we do a piece with the choruses. Oh Lord, support us all the day long. And I don't mind a little e at the end, as long as it's an e. Okay, so it's a diphthong within a parameter, which is they need to be singing my vowels. And if they're going day, that is a problem. But if they're singing day, that's not a problem. It still sounds like the word, but it's just not so extreme, and it's not distorting the note. Support us all the day long. It's limited, but it's there. And it doesn't sound like support us all the day long, which is what we want to try and avoid. So I think, again, it's just within strict rules rather than not. That was, yes.
What's got a word like how would you say that?
That's not a word that.
I mean, it's we the only bit of Greek that we sing is Good Friday. We do hagios or theos, and of course most choirs, when they see theos and they're Catholic, will sing theos, because that's what it is in the Latin pronunciation. So we don't really deal with much apart from that.
Yeah, Theotokos is a hard word to even out.
Is that sung within an English context
Yeah,
often?
it's sung a lot, because that's the title for the Mother of God. It means
Yes, of course.
The bearer of God.
So it's sung with English words.
Yeah, we have it here in a few pages maybe, I think it's called it.
Okay.
26-ish, 27.
Okay.
But Theotokos and Virgin.
See, when we have pieces in the choral tradition which are in both English and Latin, which has the fun name of being macaronic, which sounds like a pasta, it's actually quite interesting, because you need to shift quite seamlessly between the two. They're titles given to Our Lady. Of one that is so fair and bright, velut mari stella. Okay, a star of the sea. Now, the way that that's put together is that you get this choir singing, of one that is so fair and bright, velut mari stella, and slipping into Latin there. So I wonder whether, is that commonly done here, that you'd sort of sing with a correct pronunciation for the word that wasn't in English?
Well, this is it. Because it's a Greek word and it's not a Slavonic word, it's we have a Russian word which is Bogorodica. So this is the Bogorodica.
Okay.
So, which a lot of English language choristers know. I don't know. So, I guess the problem is to go Theotokos, something like that, just to have those English collapses.
Theotokos.
Theotokos or Theotokos or Theotokos.
That's what Zima does.
Theo-
Theotokos.
Theotokos. Probably Theotokos is better. Just nice clean vowels, I would say, rather than go Theotokos. That's the thing. I think I went too far, but it can go that way.
Yes.
Or Theotokos, as opposed to or Theotokos.
Yes, I have at our school, we sing both in English and in Latin as well. We're a classical school. But one of the words that I find really hard to teach is fire and glorious.
Okay, that's an interesting one, because that's another fire, and that just puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable. And I'd just eliminate it to one syllable, fire. Or fire. If you're going to do it, you're not doing fire with a Y, it's a fire. So you're still emphasising the correct syllable of that word, even though, eliminate it to one syllable, even fire. Glorious. Glorious. So the rius becomes one syllable as well. Glorious. As opposed to glorious in the English national anthem is always a painful moment, but there we go.
Well, we kind of hit rehearsal time, so choir one's going to go into church, choir two can stay here, and we can work on a few things with that and for them. And lunch is 12:30. Firstly, let's please thank Daniel.